This is an advertisement by BetterHelp. January arrives with a sense of expectation and change. But real change is rarely loud or dramatic.
It's noticing what no longer needs to be there. Thoughts you keep turning over even when they're not helping.
And when you live with those long enough, they can start to feel normal until you pause and see them more clearly. That's where perspective helps. Not fixing yourself, just creating space to understand what's been weighing you down.
Therapy can offer that space, a clearer view of your own patterns and what's worth holding on to. BetterHelp makes starting straightforward. You answer a few questions and they match you with a qualified therapist. If it doesn't feel right, you can switch at any time.
Whether you're into New Year's resolutions or not, working to better yourself is something everyone should do. And you don't even need to bulldoze your life to do it. Simply use BetterHelp.
BetterHelp makes it easy to get matched online with a qualified therapist. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/restishistory. That's betterhelp.com/restishistory.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Car shopping shouldn't feel like preparing for a marathon of paperwork. That's why Carvana makes buying and financing your car easy. From start to finish, search thousands of vehicles with great prices. All online, all on your time. And when you're ready, your new car shows up right at your door. It doesn't get better than that. Buy your car the easy way. On Carvana. Delivery fees may apply.
Happy Christmas. Come on, Dominic. You're allowed to say Happy Christmas too.
I was
Honestly,
wondering if you were going to say
Scrooge-like figure glowering at the screen. It's Christmas Day. It's the birth of our saviour. Very happy Christmas to all our listeners. Dominic is glowering away in the background.
I was just
Very
wondering
happy
if you were going to
Christmas
keep
from him
talking.
as well.
Whether you were leaving a gap for me.
I'd offered a festive greeting.
Well, Merry Christmas, everybody. Welcome to the first of our 12 Days of Christmas podcasts. And you can already see the spirit in which this will unfold. So,
okay,
Tom,
yes.
explain that this is all your idea. The reason I'm doing nothing but podcasting between now, July, and Christmas Day is because of you and this crackpot wheeze of yours. So explain it to the listeners, please.
Well, so we're not going to be putting out the regular pair of episodes. Instead, we're going to make it much harder for ourselves, and we're going to do a succession of podcasts themed around the concept of the 12 Days of Christmas, which is, of course, a very sacral idea.
Very sacral.
Do you know what it originates in, Dominic?
Christianity.
Christmas? Yeah, it originates in Christianity, and specifically the Council of Tours in 567.
Wow,
it's prescribed.
I didn't know that.
The 12 days following Christmas will be a time of festive reflection.
But it's not the Council of Tours that dictates the pear tree and the sleeping or
That's
whatever.
later. That's much later. So lots of people think that, you have Christmas and then it's over on Boxing Day and you go to the sales. But of course, that's not the case. Christmas goes on until either the 5th of January or the 6th of January, depending on whether you start the 12 days of Christmas from Christmas Day or from the day after Christmas Day. We're basically doing the 13 days.
Yeah, we're doing both, aren't we?
So, unlucky for some. So, and the idea is that each day we're going to discuss an event that happened on one of the 12 days of Christmas. And I've chosen one and Dominic has chosen one.
Yeah.
So Dominic, shall we reveal to listeners how this works by saying, what have you chosen?
Okay. So I've chosen a very festive seasonal anniversary. So 25th of December, 1991, it's the end of the Soviet Union.
Nothing screams the festive spirit like a discussion of the end of the Soviet Union.
I think when
so
people
you're preparing your turkey, you're sorting out your Brussels sprouts.
Tree, Mikhail Gorbachev, like economic reform has gone wrong. That's what people think about at Christmas, isn't it?
So ho 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 ho. And do you know what I've gone for? Well, you do because I've already.
Yeah, because it's written down in front of me.
I have chosen the coronation of Charlemagne in Rome on Christmas Day.
Well, that's a very. That's probably
AD 800, and again. Nothing screams Christmas like listening to someone going on about international politics in the 9th century.
But do you know what, Tom? I think that's probably the most famous thing, other than Christmas, to have happened on Christmas Day, isn't it?
Possibly the coronation of William the Conqueror.
No, the coronation of Charlemagne is more famous.
Yeah, I think it is. It is, yes. And and we've chosen, not all the episodes that we've chosen are going to be quite as seismic and historic, but both our choices are very, very historic.
They are.
I guess we should crack on. So I've chosen the coronation of Charlemagne. Charlemagne, titanic figure in the history of Western Europe. We haven't done yet, but we could absolutely do an episode on in due course.
So set the scene, Tom. Where and when are we?
So Charlemagne is the king of the Franks, and the Franks have emerged in the centuries that have followed the collapse of the Roman Empire in the West as the most powerful kingdom in what had been the Roman Empire in the West. There are other players in Christian Europe, the two most significant of which are the emperor in Constantinople, who rules in a direct line of succession from the Roman empires of the East.
Well, they still think of themselves as the Romans.
All the way back to Augustus. And the Bishop of Rome, the Pope, who is the bishop of one of the most important city in the Christian world. So there are five patriarchs. There's the Patriarch of Rome, of Constantinople, of Antioch, of Jerusalem, and of Alexandria. Is
Rome more important than Constantinople? Surely not.
Yes, it is. It is, because it's where Peter and Paul were martyred and are buried, and it was the original capital of the Roman Empire.
But the people in Constantinople wouldn't have said that, would they?
Well, so this is a kind of long-running fracture point, a stress point. So the patriarchies of Alexandria, of Jerusalem, and of Antioch have come under Muslim rule. Constantinople, obviously, directly under the thumb of the emperor in Constantinople. The Bishop of Rome in a slightly ambiguous position and an exposed position, because the Romans, the Byzantines, whatever, it becomes incredibly confusing because you never know when you're talking about the Romans, whether you mean the people from Rome or whether you mean the Romans of Byzantium. But let's call them Byzantines. Have reconquered much of Italy, but it's kind of frayed away. And the Pope is essentially, he's the servant of the emperor in Constantinople. He's a subject of the emperor in Constantinople. And every time a pope is elected, he sends the news directly to the emperor in Constantinople. However, the problem is that Byzantine control over Italy is threatened by various barbarian peoples, of whom the most significant are the Lombards. And the Lombards are constantly pressing down on Rome, and the Bishop of Rome wants to keep his independence. So by the 8th century, the Pope is starting to look around for another protector. And the obvious person to turn to is the King of the Franks.
Right, because they're the big power in Western Europe, aren't they?
The big power in Western Europe. So one of the popes goes, he crosses the Alps and he goes to Francia. What are the Franks looking for? Well, as it so happens, there's just been a regime change in Francia. One of the Merovingian dynasty, the original dynasty of the Franks, has been toppled. And the pretenders, the line of Charles, Carolus, so Charles Martel, who defeated the Saracens at the Battle of Tours, the Carolingians, as we call them, they are looking for the kind of legitimacy that only the Bishop of Rome can provide. And so the Pope zips over the Alps. He crowns Pepin, who's the son of Charles Martel, as king. And basically, it's a kind of, it's a match made in heaven. The Pope benefits, the Carolingians benefit. So Charlemagne is the son of Pepin. He's become, he's become absolutely the grand fromage of Latin Western Europe. He's conquered the Saxons. He's pushed into Eastern Europe. He's defeated the Saracens in Spain. Everything's going tremendously well for him. Then there is a crisis in Rome. And Dominic, I'm aware that I've been talking a lot. Do you have anything to contribute to this topic?
Nothing. Continue.
Absolutely nothing.
Speak or carry on talking. I'm interested. I'm listening to the story. It's Christmas Day. I'm busy cooking my goose, and I'm listening. I'm thinking, what do I want? I want Tom Holland to talk to me about the Franks.
So nothing. I mean, what is more festive than a tale of maiming?
Go on then, maim away.
Okay. So 795.
Yeah.
A pope called Hadrian I, who is a Roman aristocrat, very, very connected. Being very, very popular with the Carolingians. He dies, and he gets succeeded by a guy who takes on the name of Leo III.
Okay.
And Leo's background is much less exclusive. And so Hadrian's relatives are a bit resentful of this. Feel he's a bit of a parvenu, a bit of an upstart.
Yeah.
And so they essentially, they're kind of bubbling away in the background. They're cross. And they seize, in 799, they ambush Leo and they blind him and they cut his tongue out.
That's kind of always the way, though, isn't it, in this period? Blinding, cutting off people's noses, all that sort of stuff is very much par for the course.
Yeah, but what happens next is not par for the course. And this is where it's a Christmas miracle. Because what then happens is Leo escapes and miraculously he regains his sight and he regains his ability to talk.
Okay, so that suggests to me that both the blinding and the tongue severing were not... They were not carried out properly. They were carried out incompetently.
Or it happened that through God's foreknowledge and action, Leo recovered his sight and his tongue was restored to him so he could speak.
Okay, well, that's different.
So either it didn't happen or God made it happen.
Yeah, it's Christmas, so let's say it did happen. Yeah.
So Leo, having done his escape and had this miraculous recovery, he scarpers off north to meet Charlemagne, who is hanging out in Saxony.
And Charlemagne basically means Carolus Magnus, isn't it?
Charles the Great. Charles the Great, yeah. And Charles comes to meet him, and they meet up at a place called Paderborn. Leo stays there for 3 months. They commune, they chat away. Clearly something is brewing. And then Leo goes back to Rome. And for a year, they don't see each other. Then on the 23rd of November, 800, Charlemagne is approaching Rome with a great army, great retinue. And Leo goes out to meet him. And they come into Rome.
Yeah.
And Charlemagne has come basically to legitimate Leo's papacy. So he convenes a synod. He exonerates Leo of all the charges that have been brought against him by his enemies. He affirms the fact that a pope can't be judged. He's the pope. And this is so basically Charlemagne by now is in Rome. Other things, however, simultaneously are happening in the background. So on the theme of mutilation, you said how mutilation is
very Christmassy. Yeah,
very but a key part of what's going on here. So meanwhile, in Constantinople, so 3 years earlier in 797, you have one of the great women of Byzantine history, Irene, of an aristocratic Athenian family who's gone to Constantinople, married, had a son. This son has become Constantine VI.
Yeah.
But in Irene's opinion, in Mum's opinion, he doesn't measure up. So, do you know what Irene does?
Blinds him. Cuts out his tongue.
Yeah, blinds him. And she basically becomes empress.
That's her own son, this is.
Yeah.
She blinds her own son. That is very poor parenting.
Well, it's strict, isn't it?
Yeah, it's harsh.
And any parents out there with difficult toddlers or...
It's Christmas and the tempers do get fraught. You know?
Don't go the full Irene. So you've got Charlemagne in Rome, you've got an empress in Constantinople, and then on the 23rd of December, a further miraculous episode. So three of Charlemagne's servants arrive from Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And they are bringing with them the keys to the Holy Sepulchre and a holy banner.
Oh, that's nice.
And it's a miracle. It's another Christmas miracle. They've turned up 2 days before Christmas.
Yeah.
Incredible odds against that.
You don't reckon they arrived early and were just waiting outside to kind of...
Well, that would be the perspective of a cynical 21st century historian.
Yeah.
But again, let's run with the idea of a Christmas miracle. So everything is coming together. So there's this idea that Charlemagne is now the guardian of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, very holy. The Pope is there. He's beholden to Charlemagne. The Empress in Constantinople, that's looking illegitimate. And so on the 25th of December, Charlemagne is crowned as emperor, not as king, but as emperor in Rome. And the idea there is that the line of emperors in Rome that had been extinguished with Romulus Augustulus back in the 5th century has now been revitalized. So just as in the 4th and the 5th centuries, you might have 2 emperors in the Roman in the Roman Empire. Ever since the 5th century, there's only been the one in Constantinople. Now, with the crowning of Charlemagne, there are 2 once again.
And is he crowned by the
Eastern
Pope?
Roman Empire and the Western Roman. He is crowned by the Pope. Now, did Charlemagne know what was coming? This is the big question. So there's a guy called Einhard, who's a monk, who writes a life of Charlemagne that's modelled on Suetonius's lives of the Caesars.
Yeah.
And he says that at first Charlemagne was so averse to receiving the name of emperor that he said he would never have entered the church that day, even though it was the most important feast day, if he had known the Pope's plan beforehand. So Charlemagne, shocked to discover that he's being crowned as emperor. But I think almost certainly Charlemagne absolutely knew what was happening.
Yeah.
And I think the key proof of that really is the incredibly serendipitous, if it is just serendipitous, turning up of the people from Jerusalem.
The Holy
It's
Banner,
obviously
yeah.
stage-mannered to make it look as good as possible. And a contemporary chronicler gives 3 reasons why it's legitimate for Charlemagne to be crowned as Roman emperor.
Are you going to tell us? I know you are, because
I am,
I can see you looking at your notes.
I am.
Go on, tell us
so,
the 3 reasons.
one of them is that you have a woman ruling as emperor in Constantinople.
Okay, that's
So this is a sexist era, and this
yes,
is viewed as being
shocking,
unacceptable. The second is that Rome is the seat of the Caesars, the ancestral seat of the Caesars, and it is now effectively under the protection of Charlemagne, and so therefore he shoite be emperor.
That's a terrible reason, because I mean,
That's a good reason.
Rome's been under the protection of lots of people in the intervening 324
Yeah, but the Byzantines,
years.
Irene can't come to muscle in on the Lombards. Charlemagne's defeated the Lombards.
But previous
He's the
people
king of the
haven't
Lombards
crowned
now.
themselves emperor, have they? I mean, Theodoric the Ostrogoth, or whatever these people are called, who've been in charge of Rome.
Yeah, but that's because the third reason, Charles' dominion now ranks as an empire because he has many provinces.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good reason, because he is ruling an empire.
Yeah.
Isn't he?
So for those reasons, it's viewed as absolutely legitimate. So Charlemagne becomes emperor.
And that's the dawn of the Holy Roman Empire, right?
It's the dawn of the Holy Roman Empire. I mean, there will be a break because Charlemagne furiously divides his empire up, so it kind of gets increasingly fragmented. The figure of the emperors who succeed him become increasingly kind of wraith-like and spectral, and finally they vanish completely. And it's not until the 10th century when Otto the Great, friend of the show, that hairy-chested victor at the Battle of the Lechfield, is crowned emperor again, and that then establishes the continuous line that runs right the way through
to Napoleon.
To Napoleon.
Yeah. But at that point, from Otto onwards, the Holy Roman Empire is basically Germany, isn't it? With a bit of northern Italy attached. And then Napoleon, his coronation is modelled on Charlemagne's coronation, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. But he crowns himself, so the Pope is there, but doesn't crown him.
So that's very festive, Tom.
Yeah, I think nothing more festive than a few blindings.
Well, there is actually something more festive.
What is that, Dominic?
That's Soviet politics in the late 1980s and early 1990s. And that's what we'll turn to next after the break. So get ready, get your Christmas crackers ready, prepare the pigs and blankets. Mikhail Gorbachev is coming. See you after the break.
This episode is brought to you by Rocket Money.
Tom, we often talk about how to organise our finances. I'm very conscious that I'm paying for a lot of mad subscriptions. And there's one thing that we've talked about often on this show. It's the thing that we probably hate more than any other, and it's a hidden fee. I would love to get my finances under control. There are all these things piling up on our bank statements, and I think I need to fix this problem. I need to sort this out and to stop this.
I mean, my finances are so chaotic that I need this app.
So I'll tell you what it is. It's called Rocket Money. It's a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending, and it helps to lower your bills so that you can grow your savings.
With Rocket Money, you can track all of your subscriptions, and you can easily cancel within the app with just a few taps, saving you time, avoiding charges. And you can also set budgets and goals and get personalized insights and regular reports to track how you're doing. They will even send you real-time alerts for large transactions, upcoming bills, refunds, and even low balances. So let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/ishistory.
That's rocketmoney.com/ishistory. rocketmoney.com/ishistory.
Hello, welcome back to Christmas Day on The Rest is History. And it's the first of our 12 days of Christmas specials. We are looking at events that happened on this day, decades, centuries, millennia ago, who knows. In the first half, we looked at the coronation of Charlemagne in Rome on this day in AD 800. And now, Dominic Sandbrook, you are going to tickle the festive underbelly by telling us all about the end of the Soviet Union.
Well, the funny thing is, this is on Christmas Day, but it wasn't Christmas Day in Russia where it happens. So obviously they have their Christmas much later. I can't even remember what day the Orthodox Christmas is on, but it's some day in January, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this isn't Christmas Day for them. So this is the 25th of December, 1991. And we are in the Kremlin in Moscow. And Mikhail Sergeyevich Gorbachev is about to resign as president of the Soviet Union, a state which has only hours left and is kind of dead already, actually. So it's an extraordinary moment. Vladimir Putin says this is the greatest kind of geopolitical tragedy of the 20th century.
Has the KGB been abolished by this point?
I think it's sort of been abolished in name, but not in...
But still, he's hovering around.
Yeah, he's hovering around. Although a lot of KGB officers, like Putin, are kind of completely discombobulated and astonished. And, there's an incredible sense of kind of febrile uncertainty in Russia. And it's extraordinary to think that basically the beginning of the year, 1991, the Cold War is obviously over. The Berlin Wall has fallen. Eastern Europe is no longer communist. But nobody thinks the Soviet Union is going to wither away. I mean, it's still there. And CIA analysts and so on, they don't think it's going anywhere. And there's a...
Because we should explain, shouldn't we, that it's a union. So the vast majority of it is Russia, but you've also got...
all these other republics.
The Baltic states, Ukraine,
Kazakhstan,
Georgia...
Central Asia, or the Caucasian republics. Exactly. So, and that was something I think that for a lot of people in the West, they didn't really appreciate because we'd used Russia and Soviet interchangeably.
Like England and Britain.
Exactly. And that's something that's about to sort of really catch up with Soviet politics. So Gorbachev has been in since 1985. He's a hero in the West because he's seen as cuddly and peace-loving and all of these kinds of things.
Got a glamorous wife.
You're right, Raisa, exactly. And he comes and has summits with Reagan and Thatcher and so on. But in reality, in Russia, his popularity has been sinking like a stone.
Because the economy's been sinking like a stone.
The economy has been terrible. He's tried political and economic reform simultaneously, and it hasn't produced the results that he wanted. But what he's done is by having economic reforms and political reforms simultaneously, he's done two things. He's alienated a lot of ordinary Russians whose living standards are kind of imploding and who sort of feel lost in this new world. But at the same time, he's alienated a lot of the elites that he would need because of his political reforms, because he's sort of moved to some kind of democracy and so on. So by the middle of 1991, Gorbachev is in this dreadful mess where he's nobody is for him. He's caught between the liberals and the conservatives.
Like Boris.
Well, that's
warnings from history.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure that Boris is going to have like a coup and be locked up in the Crimea on holiday or something. But anyway, yes. So poor old Gorbachev, he goes off to the Crimea on holiday, exhausted, beleaguered, and hardliners in the Kremlin, really because they're outraged that he's trying to get through this new treaty to reassert the Soviet Union, a new union treaty with the various republics. They think that will give away too much power from the centre, and they think this is their last chance to kind of stop him. So they launch this coup where they basically lock him up in his dacha in the Crimea, and then they seize power in Moscow.
I remember seeing the Standard, the Evening Standard, headlines saying coup in Soviet Union.
Yeah, I remember it so vividly.
God,
I mean,
it
was extraordinary because it was
so got control of the missiles. And
it was so incompetent, and it was played out in the full glare of the media. I mean, I can remember watching Newsnight on this when the protesters were massing outside the Russian Parliament building, the White House, it's called, in Moscow, and there were tanks surrounding them, and there was this standoff, and basically everybody in the West.
And the mayor of Moscow.
Well, he's not the mayor of Moscow.
What is he? So Boris Yeltsin.
He's the leader of the Russian sort of Soviet Republic.
So Boris Yeltsin. So you should tell us who Boris Yeltsin is.
So Boris Yeltsin is a former, he's been a Communist Party apparatchik, but he has fallen out with Gorbachev rather, because Boris Yeltsin has been sort of pushing to go further and faster. They have fallen out. He's made himself very much the face of the kind of reformers. And once Gorbachev is imprisoned by the coup plotters, sort of head of the KGB and the defense ministry and so on. They make the terrible mistake of not locking up Boris Yeltsin because they just think he's a loose cannon and a drunk and a wastrel.
It's like the assassins of Caesar neglecting to arrest Mark
Antony. It's exactly that, actually, Tom. That's a very good parallel. So Yeltsin, of course, then seizes his moment. He jumps onto a tank and he sort of rallies the Russian people. The coup collapses pretty quickly within days. Gorbachev flies back from the Crimea, but his power has completely...
Yeah, he's a broken reed.
Has completely seeped away. And in the next few weeks, there is this kind of rush of events. So Yeltsin outlaws the Communist Party in Russia. And the old sort of elite, the hardliners, are so broken by the failure of the coup and so kind of disorientated that they can't stop him. So he outlaws the Communist Party. And then you get this sort of domino effect. And the key moment, I think, is on the 1st of December when Ukraine, very relevant given the headlines in the last few days. So Ukraine holds a referendum about asserting its sovereignty and basically independence from the Soviet Union. And to a lot of people's astonishment, the Ukraine votes to leave.
On a massive
basically.
Majority, I think it's 90%.
Extraordinary. And that's a sign of how much the elite sort of driven reforms have alienated people, I think. I mean, obviously it's a sign of nationalist sentiment and so on, but I think the results take everybody by surprise. Then 7 days later, Yeltsin and the leaders of the leader of Ukraine and the leader of Belarus, they meet a place called Belavezha in a kind of hunting lodge behind Gorbachev's back. And they basically sign an agreement that they're different republics. They will set up as independent states and they will be part of a commonwealth of independent states and they won't be part of the Soviet Union anymore. So you can sort of imagine that in a previous era, in a completely different political context, the reaction of the Kremlin would have been to just arrest them, put them in a gulag, send in the tanks, just crush it. But Gorbachev doesn't have that instinct. Whether the army would obey him anyway is very dubious. Power has left him. The old sort of structures have lost all credibility and self-belief.
The old system collapsed before a new one had time to start working, apparently he said.
That's what Gorbachev said, isn't it, in his Christmas Day speech?
Yeah.
So from that point, from the 8th of December onwards, the end of the Soviet Union is absolutely inevitable. I mean, the republics are declaring. Then what happens is more and more republics don't want to be left behind. So they rush to declare their independence too. And of course, the reason for that is that the old party barons in these places think this is the way I will hold on to power because I will declare, I will rush.
Which is what Yeltsin had done.
Yeah, precisely. I will reinvent myself as a nationalist. And this is the way this is what the people do in Central Asia.
What Putin does.
So Gorbachev, suddenly he's there in the Kremlin, but basically he's leading a state that is crumbling around him, that no longer exists. And I think on the 23rd of December, he has a meeting with Yeltsin. Quite a tense, long meeting for hours where they agree that in 2 days' time, he will hand over the nuclear briefcase and he will basically give up power. And that day happens to be the 25th of December, which obviously for us is Christmas Day. Extraordinary kind of coincidence. So the stage is set then for this speech. Gorbachev is going to give this internationally televised speech, an extraordinary moment in history that actually, even now, I think people in the West don't get their heads around enough. That the guy who was the successor to Lenin and Stalin and Brezhnev and Khrushchev is going to resign and the state is going to collapse live on television. Now, they want to do it with the cameras. First of all, the head of Russian TV says to Gorbachev, I want you to sign. It'd be great television if you would sign the resignation live, we'd have the cameras on you. And Gorbachev says, no, I won't do that. I'll sign it when the cameras aren't rolling. And then there's the question of how are they going to broadcast it? This is an extraordinary metaphor. The Russian cameras are not, they're huge, they're antiquated. They're basically like cameras from the 1950s or something. And they don't have the facilities to do a kind of satellite broadcast around the world. So CNN are the only people in Moscow with the facilities to do it. So it's an American television crew that are going to capture these images that go around the world.
It's like the Sasanian emperor using a Roman emperor as his mounting block.
It's even more than that, Tom, because the moment comes for Gorbachev to sign the resignation. The office, if you've ever seen footage of presidents giving speeches, the office is out of shot. It's packed with technicians and so on. most of whom are American, not Russian, because they're working for CNN. Gorbachev goes to sign the piece of paper and the pen doesn't work. The Russian pen
it's a
doesn't
Soviet
work.
pen.
So do you know what he does? He borrows a pen from a man called Tom Johnson, the president of CNN, who hands him his Mont Blanc pen, a pen that could not be
pen,
the ultimate capitalist pen. And Gorbachev signs the resignation with the capitalist pen. Then he gives this 30-minute speech where he basically says he defends himself against the idea that he has unnecessarily plunged the country into turmoil, because he says we had to change, we were failing, and no, it hasn't worked out. And he's sort of this very sort of passionate defense of his own policies. But of course, he's incredibly unpopular in Russia to an extent that, again, I think people in the West don't really grasp. We think of him as cuddly and liberal, and we don't understand why. But Russians just look at him and they think this is the man who's destroyed our country and plunged us into an economic abyss. So he's giving this sort of rather plaintive defense of his policies, but it's actually too late. Then he finishes, and then at 7:32, in this, again, fantastically symbolic moment, the two workmen take down the red flag that flies over the Kremlin, that has flown there since, effectively, kind of metaphorically, since the Russian Revolution, since the death of the Tsars and all that stuff. So down comes the red flag and up goes the white, blue and red tricolour of Russia rather than the Soviet Union. And then there are these two sort of rival drinking sessions. So Gorbachev goes into his office with a couple of his aides with a bottle of cognac, and they sort of reminisce about what went wrong and all this kind of thing. And meanwhile, Yeltsin?
What's Yeltsin up to?
So Yeltsin also goes into an office with a bottle of cognac. But there are conflicting accounts. So some people say Yeltsin and his mates got lashed, but others say Yeltsin was a much more anxious and person than is often, in the West, he's often perceived as kind of jovial
drunk,
shambolic bear. Yeah, a bit of a kind of Boris Johnson, actually. It's sort of a
drunk Boris Johnson.
Yeah, a drunk but slightly more serious Boris Johnson. Yeah. In fact, Yeltsin was much more kind of neurotic, and only a couple of years later, Yeltsin had basically had a nervous breakdown, and I think a lot of people say tried to kill himself. So Yeltsin is much more anxious, and some sources say Yeltsin didn't join in the drinking because he was so overawed by the responsibility that he knew was awaiting him. So the Soviet Union comes to an end. George Bush interrupts his Christmas Day in America to give a speech to the American people saying, the Soviet Union is over. We will work with Russia. Yeah, we won, all that sort of stuff.
USA.
Now, what you could say, Tom, is that one reason that this is such an important moment in our modern... Well, it's not just China. It's also because this is the point at which, in a way, you could argue, some people would say Russia wasn't the West's to lose, but the West does lose Russia. Because what then happens to Russia?
Yeah, all those kind of 20-year-old management consultants rush in, privatize everything.
Everything goes horribly wrong. For the Russian people, their savings, their pensions, their living standards collapse. Yeah. The living standards of ordinary Russians dip colossally in the next few years. Russia's drawn into
Putin.
Wars in Chechnya and so on.
It matters massively for China, because I think every Chinese leader looks at the humiliations visited on Gorbachev and thinks we're not going to allow that to happen.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. They definitely think that.
So it's the making of Xi Jinping and of Putin.
Well, they say this is what happens when you foolishly do political reform and economic reform at the same time.
Yeah.
The political reform is you just throw away your power. You need to do the economic reform. And the Chinese famously thought that Gorbachev was mad in doing these two things at once. And of course,
because Charlemagne had been, in 89, summer of 89. So they'd already decided on that policy.
And never apologised for it. Now, for Putin, and so for people who are in our Rest is History Club, it's not too late to join up on Christmas Day, of course. Christmas wouldn't be Christmas without a hint of commercialism. For people in our Rest is History Club who are on the Discord chat, they've been talking a lot about this in the last few weeks, about Gorbachev and Russia. And I think one of the key things when you're understanding Putin is for a lot of ordinary Russians, they say, of course, Putin is better than the alternative because we tried the alternative in the 1990s and it was a complete and utter disaster. So this moment that we in the West think of as a moment of celebration and triumph, the end of the USSR, to, more than 100 million people, it's a moment of utter, as they see it, a moment of utter disaster and chaos and tragedy and so on. And arguably, I think the Coronation of Charlemagne obviously is, to me, the most famous Christmas Day event since the birth of Christ. But I think the most...
Was he born on Christmas Day?
Well, that's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think the end of the Soviet Union, we're still actually sort of grappling to come to terms.
Well, there's kind of wonderful symmetry there, isn't there? Because we've had the birth of an empire.
And the death of an empire.
The death of an empire.
Tom, we couldn't have scripted it better.
Yeah, and both very festive.
Now, we should say that they will be the future editions of this podcast.
Slightly less heavyweight.
They will be less heavyweight. I look through my notes and I see the delights to come. I see the poetry of William McGonagall, the Battle of Wakefield,
The Tay Bridge disaster.
Yeah, it's all there.
The birth of Queen Emma of Hawaii.
The life of J.R.R. Tolkien. Albert Camus. We've got so many Christmassy treats coming up.
So one a day up to the 6th of January.
So we'll have a podcast every day till then. And we look forward to talking to you for the next one, whether you like it or not.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Rest is History. For bonus episodes, early access, ad-free listening, and access to our chat community, please sign up at restishistorypod.com. That's restishistorypod.com.